But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello, and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, I don't know what it's looking like for you, but we're getting all of the rain, it seems, today. I wanted to just point out one worthwhile thing to check out. Israel, and for anyone keeping up with this, has issued a new report to, try to rehash the October 7th mass sexual assault hoax that has been debunked many times. And they issued a brand new report by Kochav El-Kayam Levy, who many will remember was completely discredited as just a fraud by the Israeli media a couple of years ago because she collected a huge amount of money for a civil commission that was just her and for a report that didn't actually exist. Well, now she's come out with a 300-page report and it's literally nothing new. So if you would like to see good debunking of this report and how it literally is nothing but stuff that has already been discredited from previous reports going back to like early 2024 roughly. There's a good explainer over on the Electronic Intifada I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to. And I'd heard that apparently Jeremy Boring over at the Daily Wire is having a bit of a rough go of it, and that was interesting to me. For one thing, because he just deserves it. It couldn't have happened to a nicer fellow sort of thing. But also because his name just always reminds me of one of my favorite Freddie Mercury anecdotes. Apparently Freddie Mercury really, really pissed off Sid Vicious once by addressing him as Simon Ferocious. And I always think of that when I see the name Jeremy Boring, because it makes me want to call him Jethro Dull. But in any case, the head of the Daily Wire griftosphere, the guy who brought us really white chocolate and razors for racists, wants to talk about the collapse of truth online as a guy who has played a major role in trying to make it collapse. Hey Riveroon, how you doing?
What?
Jeremy's boring show. Okay, is it me? Or does Jeremy Boring look like some sort of weird mashup of American Johnson and Peter Coffin? Especially in that suit. Why the fuck has he got his house key on a necklace?
This week, news broke that the Daily Wire, a company I founded 11 years ago with Ben Shapiro and Caleb Robinson, laid off a number of employees.
the dog is conspicuously trying to squeeze as far away from him as possible and not look at what's going on. A lot like PragerU's Prager dog.
Actually,
Dennis Prager, fucking hell, I blanked on his first name. I was gonna call him Jeffrey Prager, which is definitely wrong. Dennis Prager's Prager dog.
Is that they laid off over 50% of their workforce, and the person who broke that story is former Daily Wire host Candace Owens.
Well, yes, it's definitely somebody that they have every right to claim. They shouldn't be happy about claiming it. But, I mean, it is not surprising that she has been part of this Ferengi morning ritual around Charlie Kirk. Because if you remember, when Steven Crowder got the shits over some standard boilerplate language about terms of service on platforms in his $50 million contract from the Daily Wire that he turned down, she was one of the people who immediately started screaming about all the other money that's flying around to just utterly talented people, talentless people who lie for a living, like herself.
Later modified her reporting to say, quote, "I'm hearing it was more like 60%. Absolute bloodbath." Daily Wire editor-in-chief Brent Shore made a statement later in the day challenging Candace's report. He said, quote, "Yes, the company had layoffs."
Why has he got a fucking sword behind him? Like, is he gonna go fight dragons next? With this fucking house key there?
It's always really tough. No, it was nowhere near 50% of the company.
Also, by the way, just a little security tip from just one seagull here. But if you have a key that opens anything that you give a single solitary shit about, don't display it on a video on the internet. Like, don't do what he's doing. If that key is important, literally anyone who knows anything about key making can just get a close-up of that, and they can dupe that key. That's all you need. All you need is a fucking picture. So, like, don't do what Jethro Dull here is doing. I don't know, maybe the key doesn't fucking matter. I mean, it looks ridiculous. But if it does matter, don't do that. Never, never have your key on display when you're getting pictures taken, because that can come back to haunt you.
Insane, and also insane to post without verifying. Now,
wait. I mean, let's be fair here, though. Yes, she posted without verifying, but she is, as you pointed out, an alumna of Daily Wire. Why would she post? Why would she verify? Daily Wire doesn't verify things. Daily Wire has never particularly cared whether something is true or not. Why would she verify? She learned this from you guys.
You're an active part of the Daily Wire. I don't communicate regularly with anyone at the company in any official capacity. That said, I still know many people at the company, many of whom I personally hired, and many of whom were let go in the layoffs. So,
wait, is this a way of saying that Jeremy Dull is out on his ass too? Like, that he's also cut ties with them? Because he is going to certain lengths to tell us that a company that, as he pointed out, he actually was, co-founder of. I wouldn't brag about it if I were him, but I mean, there you go. This is all he's done in his life, apparently. But he seems to be going to considerable lengths to say that this has nothing to do with him now.
Generally speaking, I have pretty good insight into this story. It's easy for me to separate fact from fiction.
Well, yes, but the question is, will you do that for us?
That gives me an enormous advantage over most people on the internet trying to make sense of the conflicting reports.
Most people on the internet are totally trying to make sense of conflicting reports of fucking layoffs at the Daily Wire. Because, remember that most people on the internet have totally heard of the Daily Wire. And most people on the internet totally care what happens to the people there.
According to multiple sources within and without the company, it sounds like just fewer than 50 people were laid off. I can't say with any certainty what percentage that is of the total Daily Wire employees.
Well, then, so you don't have much insight then, because you don't even know how many people worked there in the first place.
At this point, but it's nothing like 60%. It's nothing like 50%, or for that matter, 40%, or even 30%.
Well, I can't help but noticing that there are a number of high-end percentages that you did not rule out there.
I left a little over a year ago. We had approximately 200.
Oh wow, okay, so he did leave. I guess he got, well, the getting is good.
5 employees. Some were laid off not long after I left, but many others have been hired since, as anyone following conservative media online would easily discover. Talent.
No, yes, but I mean, this is suspiciously lacking in numbers. Yeah. There is the J Pete's wiriness to him. Yeah, I can see that.
From Isabel Brown to Matt Brad to Ben Domenech, and Daily Wire is still making movies too. And
well, yes, and they still suck.
Breaking stories and producing shows and doing whatever it is that Michael Knowles does.
Okay. Are we getting a sense, chat, that maybe there is no love lost between this jabroni and the jabroni that is genocidal scumbag Michael Knowles, too? Like, I mean, whatever it is Michael Knowles does the same thing all of the fucking Daily Wire people do. He does the same thing all of these right-wing grifters do. He lies on the internet about marginalized people and then collects shitloads of money from billionaires. Like, that's literally, that's the job. Like, what's to understand? And also, why does it look like his sofa is covered in masking tape? Is this like some sort of J.D. Vance repellent that they have to use?
All that to say, Candace is reporting insofar as it can even be called reporting. It
was your outfit that trained her in this reporting style.
Reporting. Or, at a minimum, mistaken reporting. Mistaken reporting could be the name of Candace's autobiography.
And again, like, why are you talking about this as if you had nothing to do with it? She was nobody until the fucking Daily Wire snapped her up. Whatever habits she learned from there.
When the story is how many people were let go from your favorite or least favorite media company, false reporting doesn't seem especially consequential. I mean, certainly it's consequential to every soul who lost their job at Daily.
Well, I wonder, I mean, it's interesting that he's discovered that false reporting is sometimes consequential and maybe should be avoided. It would be really neat if the Daily Wire were ever to implement that insight into practice.
And it's consequential to me on a personal level. Many of those laid off are my friends. One of them's been my friend for 22 years. But it's not...
Yeah, naturally, you would want to maintain anonymity about that.
Not of great consequence as a news story, or of great consequence...
Yeah, because nobody gives a shit about the Daily Wire, really.
To Candace's millions of fans, other than giving them a false sense of victory. I say false because of both their inflated sense of the numbers and because that inflated sense of numbers gives them an inflated sense of certainty.
Well, and I mean, there is that inflated sense of the numbers is the entire game that they play. Is the whole idea they do, the whole thing that they do in this space is talk to niche right-wing weirdos and try to convince them they're the normal people, that this is how everybody thinks, but they're the courageous ones who will come out and say that it's gay to wipe your ass and stuff like that. Like, this is literally the whole thing. It's inflated in sense of numbers all the way down.
The Daily Wire is finished. It isn't. What this story does do is highlight the broader phenomenon of false reporting that permeates the online space.
Well, the online space. Could it possibly be that maybe it's very much your online space? And also, if the Daily Wire isn't falling apart, are you at all regretting getting the fuck out of there? Because, I mean, it seems like if it's a going concern and it's one you get a percentage of, since, you know, as co-founder, he would have been getting a percentage of it, that you would probably want to be in there because of the money. And he's no longer there, and he got out before a lot of people did. That begins to sound a little bit like maybe this isn't going all that well, or at the very least he wasn't planning on it going all that well. Because otherwise, why would you distance yourself? Now I notice that it's a broken key. It's a key that is bent. It's a bent key.
You're being told things every single day that simply aren't so.
Well, yes, if you watch the Daily Wire and fucking Candace Owens, I almost called her Caleb Owens. I'm just mashing up personalities at this point, apparently. Yeah, you are going to be hearing a lot of things that aren't true.
And it's getting harder and harder to separate that from fiction online. It's never easier to spot
he's discovered the post-truth grift.
lies than when they're about you. For public figures, even those with fairly small profiles like me, being lied about is par for the course. There's some scumbag out there.
I mean, sometimes people like him lie about themselves.
Made his entire business to respond to any story about me by suggesting I have a horrible toupee, when in fact, I had a wonderful hair transplant from Bosley.
Yeah, he got the Peter Coffin.
Highly recommend. The point is this.
Wait, okay, so he also is grifting for his hair transplant. Did he get a discount for that?
Lying online, either to troll or to advance some political agenda.
Wait.
Lying online, either to troll or to advance some political agenda, is a very real phenomenon.
Wow. Yeah. I think he's right about that, chat.
Now, it's easy to spot the falsehoods when the claims being made are about you or someone you know personally, or about some...
Well, except it didn't seem very easy for him to spot these because he wasn't even sure how many people worked there or anything like that. I mean, yeah, it's coming from Candace Owens, and as he knows, since he worked with her, like, she got her big start with him. She's completely full of shit. That's why she was hired. But
area in which you happen to be an expert. Maybe
what is this motherfucker an expert in? What, just like the ins and outs of the right-wing griftosphere?
you've experienced this yourself. Maybe you're in the military and you're watching some war movie. You're immediately able to point out all the mistakes.
Yeah, because what you have to understand is that working at the Daily Wire, it's like a real-life Saving Private Ryan.
That guy isn't holding his rifle the right way. That officer isn't wearing the right ribbon or whatever.
I mean, that guy isn't holding his rifle the right way. I mean, that you could just be watching IDF combat footage.
Or perhaps you open up some website or news app and you come to report on some other subject that you are a studied expert in. Or a story about an event you have firsthand knowledge of. Or about an individual you know personally.
Well, I mean, he's describing, like, the experience of normal people reading the Daily Wire, actually. Because if you know anything about any of the stuff they're talking about, your first reaction is that, wow, that's bullshit. That's absolutely not true. They made that up. It's a fucking hoax website.
The mistakes and false reporting become immediately apparent to you. The scales fall from your eyes.
Yeah, because, you know, there are people who will talk about the way it is in the grueling universe of the right-wing bullshitosphere, and it's just stolen valor. That's right, Jethro Tull. It's stolen valor. How the fuck would they know?
For a brief moment, you realize that most of what you read in the news, or at least on the internet, is just crap. But If you're like most people, you suspend your disbelief
I picked the exact right moment to put it on drunk speed.
once again the moment you read a story about a subject you know nothing about.
Like, I mean, he's just describing his grift here. Like, this is just literally how he has made his money. This is literally how he can afford that fucking house and that fake-ass sword. And, like, why has he got the presidential seal on a commemorative plate? Or whatever the hell that thing is. Like, why does this look like an 1890s bourgeois living room in a diorama at the Smithsonian? Except with this ugly fucking couch, which I can only think is designed to keep J.D. Vance on his best behavior.
The novelist Michael Crichton called this the Gell-Mann amnesia effect.
Which is kind of funny because Michael Crichton is a good example of this because he's a climate change denialist.
Named after physicist Murray Gell-Mann. Michael Crichton described the effect this way. Quote, you open the newspaper to an article on some subject you know well. You read the article and see the journalist has absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues.
No, he's just describing reading the Daily Wire.
The article is so wrong, it actually presents the story backward. Revert.
You mean it's sort of like the time that they had to abandon the entire plan for how a fucking Daily Wire were going to do their shitty transphobic trans women in sports documentary. Because the whole premise was they were going to self-identify into women's sports. And it turned out when they decided to try to do that that's not how it works anywhere. It's crap. God, I'm gonna have to clip that.
In effect, I call these the wet streets cause rain stories. Paper's full of them. In any case, you read with exasperation or amusement the multiple errors in a story, and then turn the page to national or international.
Like, what the? I mean, this is just wild listening to.
And read as if the rest of the newspaper was somehow more accurate about Palestine than the baloney you just read.
Yeah, except here's the thing. I mean, yeah, there's some truth to what he just said, but the thing is, actually, the same source can be have different credibility levels on different subjects, because it's not usually always the same people writing about the thing, for one thing. And sometimes the source's bias on one thing that completely makes it a useless source on one thing does not actually completely render them worthless on another. Like, let me see. Let's take the New York Times. Absolutely worthless on Palestine. Absolutely worthless on trans people. But, like, I would imagine their fucking New York society coverage, or, I don't know, their, like, horse racing forum. Do they even have horse racing? Well, they probably... I've never actually read that deep into the fucking New York Times. I don't touch that shit. That might be quite good. You know, you might have a shitty science reporter who just popularizes transphobic hoaxes. But on the other hand, you've got somebody, you know, like on the Metro desk or something like that, who is reasonably credible and who you can actually, at the very least, expect to get the facts reasonably right. So yeah, I mean, it's not the same exact person doing all of it. And the thing is, decent source analysis takes into account that people have varying credibility levels on different things, because they have varying levels of knowledge. They have varying stakes in the matter, all sorts of things. So somebody who is completely useless on the subject of, I don't know, what went on at the 9th Party Congress in the DPRK recently, might have actually worthwhile insights about why the Israel is having difficulty getting reservists to get called up to go and ethnically cleanse southern Lebanon and get their asses shot off. Like, I mean, see, a lot of the worst analysis comes from this idea of this sort of one-size-fits-all thing. Now, of course, there are some sources that are omni-bullshit. Like, where you really could not trust a thing they're saying. Like Daily Wire, which, fucking Jethro Dull here probably has heard of. Or like Candace Owens, absolutely no reason to believe a word she says about anything, because there's really just nothing. Okay, when it comes to inside baseball on who's throwing what money around in the right-wing bullshitosphere, I will grudgingly acknowledge a certain amount of credibility because she knows about it, and she may have an interest in occasionally exposing certain things about people she doesn't like. But of course, the fact that she has a personal interest in exposing things about people she doesn't like, or occasionally making people who are too dead to be able to speak for themselves sound like they agree with her, and therefore she is the appropriate repository of all the money that would otherwise be going to them. There is a bias you have to take into account there. Like, real media analysis, real source analysis means acknowledging complexity.
You turn the page and forget what you know. This is the phenomenon at the heart of the entire crisis. Not just...
just listening to this guy talk about how people don't think critically anymore is sending me.
That we're being lied to, though we are.
Yes, you would know.
The deeper problem is that we are remarkably good at noticing the lies in the narrow corner of the world where we have direct knowledge, and we're remarkably bad at remembering, when we turn the page, what we just noticed.
I mean, he's just describing exactly how he manages to get to like, this is his marketing strategy. It is, he's giving the game away here. It's actually kind of fascinating.
All of this matters far beyond the question of how many people were laid off from a conservative media company.
Well, I mean, I think it depends. See, how much something matters depends on for what. If we're talking about how much it matters for the question of whether Daily Wire is a sinking ship, then how many people were laid off, I would say, matters quite a bit. Yes, I mean, all that stuff about bullshit, but then that's just a given. That's just how that's the Daily Wire right there. He really described their business model quite well, having created it. But it all what matters and what doesn't matter depends on for what.
It matters because people on the outside of a story have very little way of confirming whether the claims made inside a story are true or false.
Yeah, but you're on the outside of the story, you said.
And the same forces that produced yesterday's lie will produce tomorrow's lie. And next time, it might be more consequential.
And but now, if tomorrow's lie is coming from the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring would very much like you to know that he's not getting a cut of that.
I've read almost every day.
Somebody I know on Facebook, I think, has that exact dog. And I have to say, the dog is lovely. He does not deserve this dog. That dog is absolutely, I mean, has that really sort of like Walter Matthau facial expression, that sort of perpetual grumpy old man look that is adorable.
For a year and change, that I left the Daily Wire after bankrupting the company.
Wait, okay, what was that?
I've read almost every day for a year and change. That I left the Daily Wire after bankrupting the company.
Okay. So now we start to see the stake here.
That's not true. Every single year that I led the Daily Wire, we grew revenue. Every year.
Wait, okay. They grew revenue. But that revenue is just part of the story, Jeremy. Wait, what about net? Where you can grow revenue all you want, if your expenses are growing with it, you're still fucked, actually.
Year over year for 10 straight years. My last full quarter as CEO was at that time the biggest quarter in the history of the company.
Notice he does not use the word profit yet. Very conspicuously absent is the word profit from his description of his managerial accomplishments at the Daily Wire.
My last full year as CEO was at that time the biggest year in the history of the company.
The biggest year. I mean, I think, was it a leap year? I think the years are all roughly equal in size. Okay. So, no, the word profit hasn't come up yet.
Before it had been, and the year before that, and the year before that. But the lie persists. The most stubborn lie we combated routinely.
Well, again, yeah, I mean, and that adds to the weird sort of American coffin thing that he's got going on. Like the Peter Johnson. That doesn't work. Look. But so he literally has if there was a huge profit that he had made as CEO, and if his final year there had been the biggest profit they'd ever seen, he would be saying that. He's a fucking CEO. He knows what profit is. Maybe I'm beginning to wonder if he's seen one personally, though. But, I mean, if you're the co-founder of a company, and they apparently are not making a profit, and you're making shit tons of money and have this very expensive looking living room, which you have sullied with this ugly ass sofa, and your, He-Man sword, then that does begin to raise the question of, where's the money going? How expensive was Jerry Boring for the Daily Wire, one has to ask.
Get the Daily Wire during my time.
How much did the Daily Wire spend of its great revenue, but apparently lackluster, maybe absent profits? I'm not saying that for the fact, but I can't help noticing that Jeremy Boring, the guy who, the former CEO, as he's just pointed out to us, is not saying that they made a profit. How much of the money how much of a cost factor was he to them?
Was that the company was actively being bankrolled by the billionaire Wilkes brothers. The truth is that Ferris Wilkes invested $4.7 million in the company in our first year.
Okay, I mean, I would call that's a pretty active bankrolling activity. What other billionaires? I mean, I love this. I love when they start arguing over money, because we get receipts. We get admissions that we would not otherwise get, and we get to, work. We can map their network a little bit, and I think that's nice.
I've never so much as met his brother. I certainly never took any capital from him. And while $4.7 million is a lot of money, saying that year after year we're being funded by the billionaire Wilkes brothers, when the reality is we took money from one Wilkes brother in our first year, and then quickly became profitable, and stayed profitable, and grew our revenue to over $200 million a year.
Well, okay, but what were you growing your profits to?
Well, you're just lying.
Okay, that's so neat. This is Jeremy Boring, whose thing used to be that he was the CEO of the bullshit company, the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's outfit, formerly Candace Owens' outfit. Lots of the worst people have worked with him. He picked them. But now he no longer works with them. People say it's because he bankrupted the company. He says that that's not true. But he also has been very cagey on whether they even made a fucking profit. And I would love to think that they didn't. But I also, I don't think that it's just one right-wing billionaire that was funding these people. Just because he named that one. Because the trouble with these private companies and private donors is it's not like nonprofits where you can look at their 990s and see where their money's going. And you can piece together the overall flow just by looking at the outgoings of your major foundations and things like that, because they have to declare where the money's going, even though they don't have to declare where it's coming from. But in this sphere... Wait, oh... Welcome back to cheesemonging. So, okay, it actually becomes harder to figure it out. Like, if you try to figure out exactly where the money for, like, PragerU or any of these come from, it's actually much more complicated because they aren't nonprofits, or the money is actually coming from private individuals who don't have to declare publicly their donations and shit like that. And it's difficult. So it's actually always interesting when people like this start throwing names around like that.
It's the perfect illustration of what's changed in the information environment over the last decade.
Oh, I like how he's just talking about this from the sidelines, like he hasn't played a major role in creating the, like, all the huge liars that he's complaining about here are people who used to work for him.
In the era when traditional media outlets still controlled the bulk of reporting on conservative media, this lie kept getting picked up. But every time it did, we were able to force a correction. Slowly, over time, the better reporters and better publications learned not to publish it, because they knew they would have to retract it. That is what the model...
Which is interesting, because they tell all sorts of lies that they never retract.
Editorial standards and legal review actually does in practice. But that model only works as long as the audience gets its news from publications that operate under it. Today, almost no one does. You can find comments on this right now.
Well, I mean, again, à qui la faute? Oh, well, that's a way of communicating to us that he's very sincere. Also, the dog is so much cuter than he is that he wants us to see the dog a lot, because he hopes that the dog's goodwill will rub off on him.
Today, claiming that the Daily Wire is funded by the billionaire Wilkes brothers. The narrative is still rampant in the public conversation because the Wild West of new media has no correction mechanism. The lie just keeps going. There's no editor to call.
Like, I mean, your entire fucking media ecosphere has no correction mechanism because all you do is just libel people.
There's no retraction to demand. There's no professional cost to the people reporting the lie. So they keep repeating it. And it works.
I mean, it's interesting that he's saying that, because you can, in new media, be sued for libel. And in fact, Noah Samson is being sued for libel by Ethan Klein. And he's got a big fundraising stream because he wants to get enough money together that he can actually really contest this. And so, if anyone's in a position to support that, that's definitely worthwhile to get the word out. Because the thing is, I mean, it's not just about Noah Samson with these sorts of things. And it's not just about fucking Ethan Klein either. I mean, again, nothing against Noah Samson. I like his work. But the point is, you gotta beat these assholes. They have to lose, or they get more and more aggressive. I mean, it's just it's the legal version of what the U.S. and Israel have been doing. Nobody has actually really imposed any kind of cost. So, okay, they were humiliated by Iran, but, and now they've decided that maybe Cuba is the next weaker target, and they're hoping that they can sort of wipe the taste of humiliation out of their mouths by going after Cuba. Now, Cuba is making a point, incidentally, of showing footage of their preparations, their air defenses, just to make it clear that they're actually prepared to defend their island. They're not just a great place to get health care.
The actual facts are readily available. They've even been reported. But the internet never lets actual facts get in the way of a good narrative.
Like, how can he say this with a straight face and not get struck by lightning? Okay. So that's Jethro Tull talking about the post-truth universe. And then I thought we might have a look at the slop world of David Pakman. I did not actually realize how much time I would end up spending.
A lot of people don't fall into debt because they're careless people. They fall into it because interest and fees quietly stack the deck against them. Credit cards, personal loans, medical bills, it all adds up quickly. Our sponsor, PDS Debt, helps.
Okay, so that's an ad, because it's like, a lot of people end up in debt because everything's fucking expensive except people's wages. And the people he works for are kind of okay with that.
A lot of people still refusing to ask questions about what is happening. You're ignoring reality at this point, and we're going to...
Oh, which reality? Because I'm interested, because it's apparently a reality that he doesn't ignore? He ignores a lot of realities.
Talk about it. We also have multiple clips that are genuinely difficult to explain. Trump confusing Obama with Biden on Afghanistan. Rambling incoherently when speaking at the Coast Guard commencement.
I mean, how are these hard to explain?
And making some very strange comments about freeing Cuba. But then we also have...
wait, how very strange comments. He's saying he would like to invade Cuba and turn it back into the giant Epstein Island that it was before the revolution. Is that hard to explain? I guess if you want to avoid acknowledging U.S. imperialism. I haven't seen anything today. The last I had seen was rumors that the U.S.-backed right-wing asshole President Paz had possibly had fled the country, though I haven't seen confirmation of that from Bolivia. In any case, massive fucking... They are absolutely, once again, showing what we all ought to really be doing. The workers in Bolivia do not fuck around.
New polling that shows Trump losing 54 points. Not a typo, not a joke, as Biden would say. Losing 54 points in 18 months among the least politically engaged, which signals major problems for Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, these are not... I mean, that is half of this, like, slop grift that he's in, is pretending these things are hard to explain, because if you actually sat there and explained them... I mean, the one that takes any effort to explain, that he didn't already explain, is the one about Cuba. The one about Cuba, and I don't think he's going to touch that, because chances are he would be very much in favor of it. Yeah, I mean, they have certainly shut down the major industrial centers. The miners, I mean, it is a huge strike.
We're also going to look at Donald Trump's new acting Surgeon General, who went on Fox News slurring badly. Like, are they all high as a kite? What is happening? And making no sense whatsoever. Even Brian Kilmeade was taken aback. And later, Senator John Kennedy, Republican.
Like, I mean, all this is what gets me, because it isn't news. It feels like news. But all it is like it's a cringe compilation, really. And a cringe compilation at that, because it's not like, here's what's going on. It feels like you're getting the news, but it's not like, okay, here's what the U.S. is doing in Iran, here's what's going on, say, with, like, trans people, which there have been some scary things happening with trans people, actually. Because he heard me complaining about his sweater, no doubt.
Describes Trump's America while trying to talk about Cuba. And it is a brutal irony that we're going to talk about. What a program today.
A brutal irony, which is interesting because, I mean, I think actually what he's describing would be an accurate description, potentially, of the way Cuba is since the U.S. has imposed a murderous blockade on the island. And if you're going to talk about Cuba, why not talk about how there's this bullshit pretext going around that supposedly, according to unnamed White House sources, Cuba got a bunch of drones and wants to liberate Guantanamo concentration camp, which, of course, these pieces of shit think is bad. I think it would actually be pretty fucking based. Actually, I think it's like about time, but I don't actually think it's true. But the idea that is a casus belli when the U.S. has no right to be in anywhere in Cuba. The lease got canceled a very long time ago. It was signed at gunpoint. It was never valid. It's bullshit. The Cubans have every right to kick them out. Only reason they don't is that the U.S. has a lot more guns than they do.
We are starting to see the final perverted acts of President Donald Trump. And at this point, if you're not questioning
What makes you think they're final? There's still a couple years to go.
his brain, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Donald Trump glitching endlessly when asked relatively basic questions. Donald Trump was flying out to give a commencement speech at the Coast Guard Academy yesterday. He was, I guess you would say, interviewed, although these are really just press questions. And there is a fascinating...
That's what an interview is, though.
...moment. He is asked a question about J.D. Vance coming from Gavin Newsom, and it's framed up this way. Governor Gavin Newsom says J.D. doesn't have what it takes to follow you. And what is a fascinating...
What...
insight into Trump's psychology about this question is that Trump is trying to weigh that on one hand, he hates reporters.
Wait, so we're not going to talk about... Okay, because your chapter title suggests that we're going to talk about Cuba and maybe the possibility that the U.S. is going to start a war against it. But it seems like that's just a backdrop for you to talk about how Trump is incoherent?
Hates critical questions and all of that.
Well, we already know that. That's been his thing from the start, actually.
Hey, they're kind of complimenting me here. In a way, what Newsom is suggesting is that JD isn't as talented as me, or at least it's being implied, because Newsom is saying JD can't do what Trump does. Trump likes that. So Trump has to figure out, how do I answer this?
Oh, wait, I mean, he said it was hard to explain, like...
It is very interesting.
Really? It doesn't sound it. It sounds like... I mean, it sounds like slop. It sounds like fucking kayfabe, actually.
That's the thing, J.D. Vance has what it takes to come after you. What's your response to that? Gavin Newsom.
You said doesn't have what?
The era of Trump ends with you, and that J.D. Vance doesn't have what it takes to come after you.
Well, look, we've done a lot, and JD's very talented. He's a smart guy. He'll do very well if it's JD. We have a lot.
I'm going to come back to what he just said, if it's JD.
A lot of very talented people.
Like... Yeah, so we're gonna go and have a long discussion of if it's JD. We're not gonna talk about, like, look at, even Fox News has got it here. Trump on Cuba, there won't be escalation. At the same time, as there's all sorts of indications that there will be escalation, and in fact there already is escalation. I mean, apart from a really just outright genocidal blockade that's been imposed at this point. But instead of talking about that, which is like an actual thing that matters, we're talking about, ooh, he said, if it's JD. Wow, trouble in paradise. Like...
So I think hopefully we're going to leave something that's going to be real easy to run. We're doing a lot. We're doing a lot. And
yeah, they are doing a lot. Like, I mean, just quantitatively...
JD's talented, we're doing a lot, blah, blah, blah. If it's JD, Trump has been watching JD's numbers drop like a lead balloon. And
well, all of their numbers are dropping like lead balloons. It's kind of what their numbers do.
Must suspect that Gavin Newsom is right. Now, Gavin Newsom, of course, is not meaning it as a compliment about JD, about Donald Trump, when he says, I don't know that JD can do what Trump did.
Well, we see, because we have to just sort of distance Newsom from Donald Trump, because Newsom will not do that on his own. Newsom very much will not distance himself from the far right on his own, because he's actually very comfortable with the far right. So David has to jump in here. This is what he gets the big bucks from Chorus for. To remind us that actually we're supposed to remember, even though Gavin Newsom himself forgets a lot of the time, that he's supposed to be on the other side. You know, relative to Trump and Vance and them.
But Trump loves the idea that no one is going to be able to, quote, do what I did. Because Trump's belief is that he is the only person who is capable of doing...
Yeah, and there was nothing in the statement that said that. Like, I mean, the statement was just saying, it was actually sort of disagreeing and say, I mean, not like outright, admittedly, but saying, yeah, he's, well, no, JD's very, very talented. So... Like, this is all just like fucking Pakman reading his mind, which we're supposed to care about.
Whatever it is that he's done, which has mostly been horrible. But wait a second, is this praise? Is this an insult? What am I supposed to say? Trump loves the idea that he might be the only one who can actually do what he has been able to do. And I think he also recognizes that JD is on a significant decline.
I'm so glad we have this guy to give us the headcanon here.
Now,
rather than, I don't know, talking about...
Then it got weird, because a very confused Donald Trump suggests that it was Barack Obama who withdrew from Afghanistan.
Obama.
In fact,
Obama.
It was Joe Biden. But Trump's confused, but we're not allowed to question his brain.
I mean, it seems like in the liberal sloposphere, that's like all you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to question anything like, I mean, is it okay for the US to go and invade Cuba and Iran and stuff? Yeah, you're not really allowed to question that. You kind of have to distract from that. But you can run this one fucking thing, which is like the only thing he's got, a million times. And if you look at his fucking video titles, this is literally all he's got. It's just another one. But Trump meltdown, Trump destroyed. It's like, really? He does not seem to be very effective at being destroyed because he keeps on coming back. Like, maybe this is going to require more than fucking clickbaity YouTube video titles to sort out.
I get a kick when I look at somebody on television. He's lost 13 people. I lost 13 people. They lost 13 people leaving an airport. Obama, 13 very good people that I got to...
Now, of course, he is referring to individuals who tragically died when Joe Biden decided we are finally getting out of Afghanistan. Remember that.
Oh, which is, okay, this is interesting. Because now Joe Biden decided we're finally getting out of Afghanistan. The line for quite a while was, damn Trump, he forced us to do this. Now this is now that it fits into lionizing Biden and moving away from like the fact that he enthusiastically supported a huge live stream genocide. Now this is an achievement of his that he got us finally out. I find that fascinating.
It was Biden implementing Trump's plan to leave Afghanistan, but Trump's just confused. This happens all the time with Donald Trump. He doesn't know what year it is, or he doesn't know what year it was. He can't do it. He just can't do it. He doesn't know what's going on. Cuba came up. Cuba is now referred to as a country that will be freed by the United States.
Now, are you saying, David, that there is maybe kind of a history of the U.S. saying they will free people and actually just meaning from this mortal coil?
That is terrifying, because we know that the United States has a pretty patchy history of spreading freedom.
Okay, well, that's okay. That is better than expected. I'll give him that. But a patchy history of spreading freedom? No, it's that the U.S. doesn't spread freedom at all, except completely by accident, and then they regret it. Yeah. There's some, oh god, was it Julia Yoffe? Yeah, I forget what outlet she's from, some mainstream outlet, a right-wing, you know, like, dominant media regime reporter, was talking about, she was there and she interviewed people, and how, isn't it weird how so many people are kind of worried that if the regime collapses, the rich slave-owning fucks who they kicked out of the country will just come back and take everything over and they'll be fucked again. And she acts like this is like some weird idiosyncratic thing, rather than literally what the Cuban people have been fighting so hard to maintain since 1959.
And later in the show, we're going to delve more into Cuba, but it seems increasingly...
Oh, they're going to delve more into Cuba. That'll be great, I'm sure. Okay. I'm going to skip here.
You know, one of the unfortunate trickle-down effects of having an administration and a movement like we currently have in power is that it creates a sort of diaspora of dirtbags, as I may call it. And this...
that is still better than a basket of deplorables. I will give him that. Hey, yes, hi, old owl Hooten, good to see you. I mean, a diaspora of dirtbags is way better than a. I'll give him that. He turned a good phrase there.
It includes people like Congressman James Comer. This includes Mike Pillow, Mike Lindell. It includes a lot of different people. And I want to give you a tour through the sorts of...
Wait, that's... I could have sworn that was Jesse Watters. Apparently it's some guy called Finnerty at Newsmax. Do they have, like... Do they just have... What is his name? The guy who played Wei Yun and, like, 20 different people on Deep Space Nine. Is there, like, some sort of right-wing Kevin Combs, I think his name, figure... running around who is just the same guy on 5 different channels? Because this guy looks just like fucking Jesse Watters.
Nonsense that surfaces when people like Trump are in power and when nonsense is normalized. First is a Newsmax interview with Congressman James Comer. Now, I've got to hand it to Newsmax, which is a completely wacky right-wing news outlet. The Newsmax...
Well, maybe then you don't have to hand it to him.
Here, Rob Finnerty seems pretty damn skeptical of what Trump wants to do with Cuba. Take a look at this. But the focus is James Comer. And the way that these people just go, anything Trump...
Well, why shouldn't the focus be on maybe, like, Cuba and supporting Cuba against imperialist aggression that is intended to enslave them?
This Cuba thing, Secretary of State Marco Rubio...
Hey, Tomas. Well, it's like all of the wars, really. When they're going on, Pakman avoids really taking any clear stance.
Released a message to the people of Cuba today in Spanish. Then Raul Castro gets indicted. I get it. The Ayatollah is gone. Nicolas Maduro is in jail. But now Cuba,
I wanted to hear Narco Rubio speaking Spanish.
Struggle with how this is America first when gas is $4.55 a gallon right now.
It is, and you're absolutely right. But at the end of the day, Cuba has always been a national security threat, as you said.
Okay, and the thing is that this has been the official line for a very long time, like since about 1959 actually. And before that, I mean, if you go back and you look at like John Quincy Adams already, or pretty much all of the like first 4 or 5 presidents were all talking about how eventually Cuba was going to be theirs. John Quincy Adams said that it would fall into our hands by like ripe fruit, by the means of political gravitation and shit like that. The U.S. has been trying to take over. I mean, that would not surprise. Well, he's kind of the most hated man in a lot of places. He's narco culiao. Oh wow, we got some link spam. Let's get rid of the link spam. Conche tu madre. Add to restream blacklist. Bye. Ciao, weón.
Meeting with Cuba since before I was born. I'm 53 years old. So the negotiations have gone nowhere. Cuba's leader is at the end of his lifespan. The Cuban...
No, he isn't. Díaz-Canel is not near the end of his lifespan. I mean, wait, how are you going to talk about this in the U.S. where like practically the entire political class is just genocidal octogenarians?
People clearly, unlike maybe the Iranian people, the Cuban people clearly want a regime change in Cuba.
No, they don't. There's literally, I mean, I love that. This is really cute though, because I don't know what this Comey was saying back before the U.S. attacked Iran the second time, but the same people who were saying, you know, okay, we were wrong about Iraq, but the people of Iran definitely want a regime change. They're totally ready for it. And now the line is, oh, you know, so much for Iran, but the people of Cuba, they definitely want a regime change. Like, I mean, they're just keeping on rolling out it. The dedication to they're going to greet us as liberators is really remarkable.
It's just, you know, minutes away from Miami and Florida in the United States, so it's a strategic problem for the United States. But do you really think
how is it a strategic problem? I mean, other than the fact that Cuba has escaped U.S. control and nothing has actually managed to bring it back in U.S. control, despite the U.S.'s worst efforts.
Mr. Chairman, do you really think that Cuba's a threat?
What? If some country went in and loaded Cuba with the same drones that...
If if someone went in and gave Cuba drones that Iran, if
Iran had when we first started bombing Iran, then yes, I think it could be a threat.
Well, so what you're saying, though, but because let's just remember, Iran wasn't using those drones against the U.S. until the U.S. attacked Iran. So what he's saying is the threat is that Cuba might be able to defend themselves if attacked. And here's the thing about the drones, incidentally, about all the drones that are making life so complicated for Israel and the U.S., they are cheap as fuck and very easy to manufacture. I mean, we're talking a couple $100 a pop, and they take out multi-million-dollar tanks with $700,000 active protection systems. Like, I mean, I don't even think that Cuba would necessarily need to import the things. They can probably make them in-house. I mean, because it doesn't take a whole lot of resources to make them. But this is just actually, this is a reboot of an even older one. When the U.S. was at war with Nicaragua in the 80s. There was a huge thing about, well, maybe the U.S. needs to attack Nicaragua harder, because it sounds like they got some MiGs from the Soviets. And the debate then was between the Reagan administration, who said the rumor that they got some MiGs from the Soviets was enough to just murder everyone in Nicaragua, and the Democrats, who said, you know, this may be a reason to murder everyone in Nicaragua, but only if those MiGs are potentially capable against the United States. The idea that we were supposed to take home from that, you know, as readers of the newspapers, was, of course, that obviously, if Nicaragua's getting MiGs, the next thing, it's going to be fucking Red Dawn, isn't it? They're going to invade the United States. Because they're totally going to do that, because Nicaragua, I mean, it is like almost the size of, I think, Kentucky. But the reality, the real concern was it meant that Nicaragua would be in a position to respond to U.S. airstrikes and defend their territory against the U.S. Air Force. And this is the same concern that's being raised here. Let's see if David Pakman decides to bring any of that up.
I don't think that's there. I know John Radcliffe has been on the ground. The CIA's on the ground as we speak, talking to the Cuban officials. I really don't think, Rob, it'll get to any type of military action, but the president's threatening that. He's increased sanctions on Cuba. I don't know how many more sanctions the Cubans can take, especially...
Well, yeah, I mean, it is like murdering people. It is absolutely murderous. Maybe they shouldn't be doing that.
After what happened in Venezuela.
It is fascinating that even on Newsmax, they are struggling to fall for this crap.
Which crap? Which crap, though? I'm interested. Yeah, Red Dawn was interesting. I rewatched that. If you watch Millennials Are Killing Capitalism, they have a series they do occasionally called The Imperial 80s, and they did an entire episode on Red Dawn. And I saw that, and I decided I'd never seen Red Dawn, though I remembered reading in the Guinness Book of World Records when I was like 12 that it was listed as the most violent movie in like history, based on the quantitative listing of individual acts of violence. And yeah, I mean, the wild thing that gets me about Red Dawn in both its iterations is that the people who watch that, they totally get it when you put it this way, when it's like, yeah, shit, if them Soviets and them Nicaraguans come in here, we're gonna totally fucking kick their asses. But when we go into somebody else's country and they respond exactly the way those motherfuckers are applauding when they watch Red Dawn, they're like, no, this isn't right, they're terrorists. And it's like, wait, what do you mean? You almost had an insight there.
Why should Americans support going into Iran, going into Cuba? Look at gas prices. People can't afford their bills.
Well, yeah, that's the only thing to worry about. It's not like, fuck the Cubans, fuck the Iranians. Why should we care what happens to them? But the gas prices, that's the real victim, is the gas prices.
And James Comer basically goes, well, if Cuba were to be loaded up with a bunch of weapons, they're really close, and therefore, if they got those weapons, they might be able to, if they want to do something, if all of other defenses weren't able to. James Comer, give me a break, dude. You're not even convinced. Look at the skeptical look on Rob Finnerty's face. He's...
Oh, Comer. I was saying Comey a second ago. Too many fucking similar names. Yeah, exactly. It is worthy and unworthy victims. Exactly, quite right. And like worthy and unworthy violence users, I would also say. Because there's this, because we get this idea, there are some people it's totally legitimate to, you know, it's, you know, there are two ends of it. It's like they're the people who it is legitimate for violence to be used by, and the people who it is legitimate for violence to be used against. And so people can, like, cheer something like Red Dawn, where it's basically, you know, it's fucking teenagers with RPGs and M16s blowing up tanks and shit, blowing up the occupation forces and stuff. And they can cheer for that because that is, you know, in that particular situation, someone who the propaganda system says it's legitimate to use violence by, and legitimate to use violence against, because it's the evil Cubans and Soviets and Nicaraguans and all that. Yeah, exactly.
It is crap. All right. So then we go to U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, defends Donald Trump's slush fund. And he defends it basically by saying, I think...
This is all... Wait. Is that all he's... He said he was going to do a deep dive into Cuba, and this is it? Wait, he interviewed Lanny Davis, the guy who was the lawyer for the coup regime in Honduras in 2009. He was the lobbyist, the chief lobbyist for the coup regime, and also a close personal friend of the Clintons. Like, I mean, absolute slime bag.
It's great to speak today with Lanny Davis, attorney, political operative, and author.
No, I mean, that's a neat way of saying a guy who acts as a PR flag for dictatorship and bagman for dictatorships.
Is Finding the Third Way, Lessons in the Politics of Civility.
Oh, great. We're going to find the third way, chat. That's so wonderful. They're going to finally find, you know, it's not that first position, right? It's not that second position either. It's a secret third position that they've come up with.
From my journey through history. Really good to meet you, and I appreciate
his journey through history. Like, the time that he represented a mass murderous narco state that had brought down an elected government that was starting to increase the minimum wage of the some of the poorest people in Latin America.
Today. Thank you for having me. You know,
well, I mean, fish don't talk about water much either.
I'm very interested in your career because there's a couple of areas of it. There's the more overtly political side.
Yeah, I'm interested in his career too, and I like. Okay, so are you going to talk about Honduras at all?
But also, I read a lot of nonfiction about investigations, nonfiction about scandals.
Yes, and I mean, Lanny Davis has been in his share of those. Like, was he the guy? I feel like I'm not gonna say this until Davis Farah. Lobbyist Lanny Davis hired by Libyan commander for U.S. advocacy. Okay, so the commander in the Libyan slave regime that Clinton helped install, alongside Obama, of course, he represented that regime, which is really interesting because he also has a history of repping the Clinton family. Well, I mean, when you're a gravedigger, you notice these things. Okay, he was a bagman for Michael Cohen. Oh, okay, and he was also a registered agent of Ukrainian oligarch Dmytro Firtash. a close ally of Vladimir Putin with ties to former Trump people. Like, okay, so this guy, it's interesting, this guy has connections that you would think that Chorus would be uncomfortable with, because they're like Trump-related connections.
And you appear as a character in many of those books as the accused or the embattled or the beleaguered.
Yeah, because he's done a lot of really sleazy shit.
Is represented by Lanny Davis. The most recent one was...
Well, no. I mean, Davis himself has also been, like, the accused...
A book about Harvey Weinstein, and there have been many others.
Well, yeah, wow, so...
Just in learning about how this space you operated in, both on the political side and the more, kind of like crisis PR side, works in the sense of, do you gain a reputation of, hey, if you have a certain type of problem, maybe you want to talk to Lanny? Is it...
Well, yes, if you happen to be a dictator who's close friends with the Clintons and you've got some really dodgy money that you need to move, you talk with Lanny.
Transactional? Is it relational? How do you sort of get that reputation?
Like, this is the questions he asks. This guy has played a major role in supporting some of the worst fucking war criminals of the 2010s, amongst other things. Like, his client list, the published client list, the stuff that where he's registered under the Foreign Agents Registration Act and everything, are some of the worst people in the world. And we're just going to be like, yeah, so how do you do your marketing, Lanny? Tell us about your marketing strategy.
Well, first of all, I am a bit defensive about one of the people you mentioned, because I did know the truth. I sometimes get calls from clients to help them in the media. If I'm a defense lawyer, that's what we do. Sometimes we defend people who wouldn't be needed as criminal defense lawyers if there weren't an accusation of crimes. But in the case of advocacy in the media, I have a litmus test. If I'm not comfortable with what the individual has done and I can't defend that individual on the facts and the truth, I resign.
Okay, that's a very interesting admission, actually, because if you look at the people that he is, like, his public client list, the list of the people that he has been in the public eye representing, that tells you a lot about the sort of things Lanny Davis is comfortable with. Most of which are questions that would have been answered by his "I'm a close associate of the Clinton family" t-shirt.
What happened with Mr. Weinstein is that when he called me, he was a Hollywood producer, very active in liberal Democratic Party politics, and he asked me to help him on accusations involving sexual misdeeds. And I was trying to investigate
sexual misdeeds. I believe the word is serial rape.
Accusers were, and how I would possibly defend him. And then the New York Times was writing the story that ended up earning the 2 reporters a Pulitzer, and I resigned as soon as I recognized that Mr. Weinstein was not somebody who I could possibly, or would I...
Okay, but it's just kind of difficult to see the standard here, because, I mean, like, the Libyan warlord, the fucking dodgy Ukrainian oligarch, the mass murderous dictatorship the U.S. imposed on Honduras in 2009. Like, in what universe is Harvey Weinstein beyond the pale? Oh yeah, I mean, Pakman, or more specifically, like, the money behind him, is very reliably pro-American empire. He will never, I mean, in fact, he does an amazing job of barely acknowledging things. I mean, one of the things that's was really telling. This is from a former Pakman producer, it's worth noting. It was, he now works, I think, for Current Events. And he said this on live stream, that, that Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, in 2023, 2024, I forget exactly when, well, they were coming back from a meeting with Harris. And they were talking to each other on the way back about, like, what to do about the genocide in Gaza. And they came to the conclusion that there was just no way to spin the genocide in Gaza that looked good for the Democrats, so they should just be completely silent about it. And that has been out there in the public domain from a former executive producer of David Pakman for, like, 2 years now. And and if there's been any rebuttal, it has been buried. Like, does not seem to have said anything about it. Cohen doesn't seem to have said anything about neither of them. You know, So that does not, it does not sound like that has been in any way debunked or called into question. So, yeah, I mean, very reliably pro-American empire.
Be able to defend. So just for the record, when Fair mentioned my defense of Mr. Weinstein, it isn't involving criminal defense lawyers, and that's what you're supposed to do, is defend people, so there's due process. But I just resigned, and that was something both reporters gave me a lot of credit from the New York Times for helping them write the story. There's even a movie made where somebody played me, and I didn't like the way the person who was a lawyer from Succession, rather great actor, portrayed me. But
well, yeah, I mean, the thing about having a career as a grade A sleazebag is that when you get made into a movie, the people who play you often will decide to sort of sleaze max it a bit, and I guess he feels he was being sleaze mogged by the portrayal.
Nevertheless, I had to just clear the air that I resigned the Harvey Weinstein account. So I guess the answer, which is an amusing answer, but it's the truth, is I never get a phone call, "Hey, Lanny, I've got great news for you." Right. I have a reputation for helping people who are in trouble in the media, but only...
Yeah, but a very specific kind of people who are in trouble with the media. Like, you never see Lanny Davis. I mean... Like, so when Palestinian solidarity activists are being smeared in the media and threatened by institutions and stuff like that, they're having trouble in the media. You will never see Lanny Davis show up to rep one of them. You'll never see him, like, show up on, and take a mic and be like, yeah, my client is just defending the rights of Palestinians, and it's despicable that they're being accused of anti-Semitism and all sorts of other fabricated bullshit. He won't do that. He does not take that case. The people he takes are just slime balls with money.
If I have facts that are substantiated, which I can give to the media as facts, and I wrote a book of their bad facts, even more so do I want to get that into the media so that all the facts come out. And the book that I wrote about my White House experience, sorry for the long answer, is called Truth to Tell, which is what I did in the White House, is try to tell the truth about what President Clinton was going through. And then the subhead, that is the mantra of tell it early, tell it all, tell it yourself, meaning bad facts as well as good facts.
Well, this is actually fairly standard crisis PR advice from my understanding of it. Because the idea is, it's also criminal defense advice, that if you know something's is likely to get out that looks bad for your client, and it will probably look worse if the jury hears about it from somebody other than your client, because then they will feel betrayed by either the client or the lawyer or both of them.
I share with the media because we might as well get the bad facts out ourselves.
That does not change the fact that you should never, ever fucking talk to cops.
People resist that. It's counterintuitive, but it gets the story over with and gets all the truth out into the marketplace. So that's my reputation.
And the thing is, oh, wait, this is the longest segment, actually, which is interesting. I was going to say, it seems like he's trying to run out the clock talking about his marketing strategy, so that there is no chance of talking about the list of extremely slimy mass murderers he has held the bag for. But it is time to wrap up anyway. We may come back to this. I did not actually look at the chapter titles on this. I just thought, do a liberal slop stream. Look, just actually sit through an entire fucking stream of his and see what comes out. It's like, one of the slimiest bagmen in Washington just happens to be one of his guests, and he's glazing the shit at him like he's a fucking donut for hemorrhoids. So we may come back to that. Have a good night. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And if you go to my Patreon, that's patreon.com, Elise Hendrick, there are free gift subscriptions available because a good friend of mine bought a whole bunch of them by accident, and you can find the link there to redeem them. I will see you tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a